It's Tuesday morning. You're scrolling LinkedIn on your commute and you see it, your dream job. Senior product manager at a company you've been following for 2 years. You screenshot it immediately. That afternoon, the recruiter calls. Your heart's racing. She's excited about your background. The conversation's going great. Then she says it. Just so you know up front, the range for this role is $85,000 to $95,000. Does that work for you? You pause. You were thinking $110,000. You've done the research. You know what people with your experience make. But now that number is in your head. $85,000 to $95,000. And something shifts. You hear yourself say, "Yeah, that could work. Let's keep talking." You hang up and immediately feel it, that sinking feeling. Did you just undersell yourself? But here's what you don't realize yet. That one number, $85,000, just became your anchor. And over the next 10 years, that anchor could cost you $250,000 or more. The wild part? You'll probably do the exact same thing at your next job, and the one after that, because you haven't recognized the pattern yet. Today, we're talking about how that first number hijacks your entire career trajectory. And more importantly, how to flip the power dynamic so you set the anchor instead of them. Welcome back to Book Takeaways for Professional Growth. I'm your host, Marcus, and today we're starting a 5-part deep dive into Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. Here's a question. Remember in our Kahneman episode when we talked about that salary negotiation? The one where you hear, "We're thinking 70,000," and your brain immediately starts calculating from that number? We talked about how that's anchoring, how it's system one thinking taking over. But here's what we didn't talk about. What happens after that moment? What happens when that anchor doesn't just affect one negotiation, but follows you through your entire career, compounding year after year after year? That's what today is about. Not just why your brain gets anchored. We covered that with Kahneman. But how that one moment cascades into a pattern that could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. You're not lazy. You're not bad at negotiating. You're predictably human. And once you understand the pattern, you can design around it. Let's get into it. Segment 1. The problem. The myth of rationality. Traditional economics tells us we're rational beings. We weigh our options, make informed decisions, act in our own best interest. But let's be real. That's not how any of us actually work. Dan Ariely is a behavioral economist who spent 20 years running experiments on how humans actually behave. And what he discovered is fascinating. We're not randomly irrational. We're predictably irrational. Think about your last year. How many times did you tell yourself you'd start networking more, then didn't? How many times did you say yes to extra work when you were already overwhelmed? How many times did you know what you should do in a salary negotiation, but froze up and just said yes to the first offer? These aren't character flaws, they're patterns. And here's the good news. Patterns can be understood, and once you understand them, you can work around them. Segment 2. The foundational principle. Here's the core principle of Predictably Irrational. Our irrationality isn't random. It's systematic and predictable. Systematic means your mistakes follow patterns based on how your brain is wired. Predictable means once you know the pattern, you can see it coming. And more importantly, you can design your way around it. This is a game changer because most of us think, I just need more discipline. I need to work harder. I need to be better. But Ariely's research says something completely different. Your problem isn't willpower. Your problem is design. Let me give you an example. You know that friend who always hits the gym at 6 a.m.? You probably think they have amazing willpower. But here's what's actually happening. They laid out their gym clothes the night before. They set 3 alarms. They told their workout buddy they'd be there. They removed every decision point between waking up and working out. That's not willpower. That's design. They built a system that works with human nature instead of fighting it. Connection to Kahneman, two different lenses. If you heard our Kahneman episode, you're wondering, isn't this the same thing? Related, but different. Think of it this way. Kahneman explains the mechanism, System 1 and System 2, fast thinking versus slow thinking, how your brain processes information in the moment. Ariely explains the pattern, what specific mistakes you'll make over and over in real situations, and how those mistakes compound over time. In our Kahneman episode on anchoring, we learn that your brain latches on to the first number you hear. That's the mechanism. Today, with Ariely, we're learning what happens when that anchor doesn't just affect one negotiation. It follows you for years. That's the pattern. One gives you self-awareness. The other gives you a strategy to break the cycle. Segment 3. Case Study. The Anchoring Effect and Your Salary. All right, let's go deep on anchoring, because this is where Ariely's work gets expensive if you don't understand it. Quick callback to the Kahneman episode. Remember our episode on thinking fast and slow? We talked about Alex and Jordan, two candidates, same role, same company. Alex heard the recruiter say $68,000 and immediately thought, that's more than I make now, and said yes. Alex got anchored and accepted $68,000. Jordan did the research first, knew the market range was $75,000 to $90,000. And when the recruiter said $68,000, Jordan responded with, based on my research, I was expecting something in the low to mid 80s. Is there flexibility? Jordan got $80,000. Same role, same company. $12,000 difference in year one. That was System 1 anchoring at work, the cognitive bias Kahneman identified. But here's where Ariely takes it further. Kahneman showed us that anchoring happens, the psychological mechanism in the moment. Ariely shows us how it cascades through your entire career. It's not just one negotiation. It's a pattern that compounds, costing you exponentially more than you realize. Let's follow Alex and Jordan 5 years into their careers and see what that initial anchor actually cost them. The long tail, where Ariely's insight gets brutal. Year 1, Alex, $68,000. Jordan, $80,000. Difference, $12,000. Year 2, both get promoted. Alex gets a 10% raise, now at $74,800. Jordan gets a 10% raise, now at $88,000. Gap has grown to $13,200. But here's what's really happening inside Alex's brain. Alex's mental reference point is still anchored around that initial $68,000. When Alex starts job hunting, the thought process is, I'm making $74,800 now, so I should look for something around $80,000. Jordan's mental reference point, the high 80s. Jordan is thinking, I'm at $88,000, so my next role should be in the mid to high 90s. Same experience level, same skills, completely different mental anchors. Year 3. Both switch companies. Alex gets offered $82,000. Feels great. That's a $7,200 raise. Jordan gets offered $96,000. Also feels great. That's an $8,000 raise. Gap is now $14,000. Year 5. Alex, $92,000. Jordan, $108,000. Gap, $16,000. Fast forward to age 35, 10 years in. Alex should be earning around $115,000, but is at $98,000. Jordan is at $118,000. Alex has left approximately $80,000 on the table over 10 years. By age 45, 20 years in, Alex should be at $150,000, but is at $128,000. Jordan is at $155,000. Alex has lost over $200,000 in cumulative earnings. Why this is predictably irrational. Ariely's core insight. Remember in the Kahneman episode when we talked about System 1 grabbing on to arbitrary numbers? That was the moment of anchoring. Ariely studied what happens after that moment. And here's what he discovered. The anchor doesn't just influence one decision. It creates a mental reference point that you carry forward. You internalize it. It becomes your baseline for every future decision. This is why Ariely calls it predictably irrational. It's not a one-time cognitive bias. It's a systematic pattern. It compounds over time. It happens to almost everyone who doesn't recognize it. You're not comparing new offers to the actual market value. You're comparing them to your previous salary, which was itself anchored low. You feel like you're progressing. You are progressing, just slower than you should be. And you never even realize what you're losing, because you don't have Jordan's salary to compare to. The strategic difference. In the Kahneman episode, we learned that anchoring happens. We became aware of the bias. But awareness alone doesn't tell you what to do about it. You can't just tell your System 1 brain to stop anchoring. It doesn't work that way. Ariely's research gives us the strategy. Don't try to resist their anchor once you hear it. That's nearly impossible. Instead, set your own anchor first. Remember Jordan's approach? Before the negotiation even started, Jordan researched market ranges, $75,000 to $90,000, wrote down 3 numbers: walk away, $74,000, target, $82,000, stretch, $88,000. Entered the conversation with those anchors already established. So when the recruiter said $68,000, Jordan's System 1 still felt the pull. But there was already another anchor in place. Jordan's own numbers. Jordan's response: "Thank you. I really appreciate the offer, and I'm excited about the role. Based on my research into similar positions in this market, I was expecting something in the low to mid-80s. Is there flexibility to move in that direction?" That's not just confidence. That's strategic design. Jordan didn't fight against anchoring. Jordan used it. 3 key lessons. Building on Kahneman. 1. The first number doesn't just influence the moment. It influences every subsequent decision. Kahneman showed us it affects your judgment in the moment. Ariely shows us it cascades through years of career decisions. 2. Anchors persist and compound. It's not just a momentary bias in your thinking. It's a systematic pattern that follows you unless you actively reset it. 3. You can't eliminate anchoring, but you can control who sets it. Awareness of the bias, Kahneman, plus strategic design, Ariely, equals you setting your own anchors instead of reacting to theirs. This is what systematic irrationality means. It's not one bad decision. It's a predictable pattern that compounds, unless you recognize it and design your approach around it. Segment 4. What's coming in the next 3 episodes? Okay, so we've established the foundational principle. We're predictably irrational in systematic ways. And we've seen how one arbitrary number, if you don't recognize the pattern, can cascade through your entire salary trajectory, costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Over the next 3 episodes, we're diving into 3 more patterns that directly impact your career. Episode 2. The hot brain versus the cool brain. Your procrastination isn't about laziness. It's about operating in 2 different states. When you're calm, cool brain, you make great plans. When you're stressed or tired, hot brain, those plans evaporate. We're exploring why external deadlines work when willpower doesn't, and how to pre-commit your way to actually getting things done. Episode 3. The power of expectations. Your beliefs about what's possible don't just affect your mindset. They shape your actual performance. Higher expectations literally produce better results. We're exploring how your ceiling is often self-imposed and how to shift limiting beliefs so you can break through. Episode 4. Social norms versus market norms. There are 2 ways to motivate people. Social norms, teamwork, purpose, belonging, and market norms, money, transactions, contracts. When these mix, motivation collapses. This explains why some teams are fired up on modest salaries, while others with great pay are totally disengaged. We're talking about how to recognize which system you're in and how to use it to your advantage. Segment 5. Your action point for this week. Here's your action point for this week. And this builds directly on what we covered in the Kahneman episode. In episode 3 of our Kahneman series, we gave you this exercise. Take 20 minutes and define your 3 numbers for your current role in today's market. Walk-away number, target number, stretch number. If you did that exercise, great. Now take it one step further with Ariely's lens. Look back at your last 3 salary decisions. Could be job offers, could be raises, could be freelance rates you set. For each one, ask yourself, what was the first number I heard or used as a reference point? Did I set my own anchor first, or did I react to theirs? Is that anchor still affecting my current expectations? Because here's what happens when you do this. You start seeing the pattern, not just the moment. You shift from, I got anchored once, to, I have a systematic tendency to accept anchors without setting my own first. And once you see the pattern, you can design around it. That's the difference between understanding the bias and breaking the cycle. The foundational principle of Predictably Irrational is this. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're predictably human. And once you understand how predictably human you are, you can design your career accordingly. In our Kahneman episode, you learned that anchoring happens, that your System 1 brain latches onto the first number. Today, with Ariely, you learned what happens when you don't recognize that pattern, how it cascades, how it compounds, how it quietly costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars over a career. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about understanding the hidden forces shaping your decisions and building systems that work with human nature instead of fighting it. Next week, we're diving into the hot brain versus the cool brain. Why your procrastination isn't a willpower problem, it's a design problem. We'll explore how to build pre-commitments that actually work. Thanks for listening to Book Takeaways for Professional Growth. I'm your host, Marcus, and I'll see you next week. Until then, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, your mistakes aren't character flaws, they're patterns, and patterns can be designed around.